Alright, I'm getting ready to take this carburetor off the Honda CL-70. We're going to do a rebuild on it. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty nasty in there. I just rebuilt the petcock, and that was plugged like big time. Probably the worst I've ever seen. So I'm assuming the carburetor is not going to be much better. So we're going to go ahead and get this off. Start with your fuel line right there. That's obviously going to come off the petcock from underneath the tank. I had that off already because I had that off. So your next step is going to be, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe those are 10mm bolts that you got to take out. I got these loose already, obviously. Right. Pull that off. You got a rubber gasket up on top, and the bottom you got a paper gasket. You can see this one kind of ripped. I had this off already because I was trying to get the valves unstuck, so I'm going to have to find a new paper gasket for the bottom. The rubber gasket's in pretty good shape. So once you do that, I usually go ahead and stick my bolts back in so you don't lose them. Alright, so once that's done, you're going to go ahead and remove your cap. Hopefully. Oh, actually it broke pretty easy. It hasn't been off in almost 40 years, so. And that's sticking on me, so I'm not going to pull too hard. You have your drain right here, your overflow. Go ahead, and I'm probably going to do this off camera, but you got a little clamp there, pinch clamp. Pull that off. This hose is pretty brittle. You can just go ahead and wiggle that off. Once you got that off, then you can go ahead and remove your spring, and that'll get the carb off this collar, and should be able to pull that right off. Alright, so I got the carburetor pulled off of there now. Just push your spring to the side. Took a little doing to get that off because it's been in there for so long. So anyhow, this hose broke, which I expected. Super brittle for 40 years old. I wouldn't expect anything different. And this is also cracked too, so I'm going to get some new fuel line for that. That's the least of our problems. But this thing has been in here so long, I can't even get this needle to pull out. And by the looks of the inside of there, this thing's pretty well seized up. So I'm going to spray some lubricant in there, some WD-40, and hopefully that'll loosen up, and we'll be able to break that free without destroying anything. Then we can get this on the bench and see what we're really up against. Alright, so I've been working at this carburetor for a while now, and I can't get this slide to come out. It's so gummed up in there. I tried PB Blaster, I soaked it for a while, WD-40, carbon choke cleaner, and I can't get that thing to budge, and I don't want to break anything on it. So what I'm going to try to do at this point is actually take the bowl apart and take a look at the inside of that and see if I can't get some of that carbon choke cleaner down this way, and maybe get in there. I don't know if it's going to make any difference whatsoever, but so far I can't get that slide to move. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this and get a look and see what it looks like inside this float assembly here. Oh boy. Take a look at that. That is definitely the worst carburetor I've ever seen. Alright, so I don't even know what to make of that. I guess what I'm going to do from this point on is still try to get that slide to break free. If I can get that to break free, hopefully I can get this in my ultrasonic cleaner, and I'm going to have to run it for a while and hopefully break up enough of this crud to even make heads or tails of that. I hate to say it, but I don't even know if this is going to be savable, which would be a shame because, you know, that's obviously the original carburetor to this motorcycle, and I'd hate to put an aftermarket on there, and to find a new one would probably be next to impossible, and I'm sure it would cost an arm and a leg. But I've cleaned some pretty dirty carburetors, but not that bad. But I'm not giving up, so anyhow, I'm going to keep working at this, and I'll be back. Alright, I got that jet out of there, so I'm going to try to get some carbon choke cleaner down in here and let it work at it a little bit. Hopefully dissolve some of the gum buildup in there, and hopefully we can get this guy out of there. Alright, now that we got this off the bike finally, going to go ahead and start disassembling. Going to take our gaskets off, O-rings. Got this guy here. You got your bowl gasket. I'd be a little careful getting this guy out. I'm not sure if the rebuild kit comes with that gasket or not, so I'm going to get something a little bit better and try to get underneath this to get that off without breaking it, just in case. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and remove this adjustment screw. Normally I would count the turns, but I'll be lucky if I can get this to break free. Probably going to be a spring behind here. Next we're going to remove our two jets. The main jet I believe is a 7mm, but I actually have a 9/32 standard socket that fits on there. I already had that loose anyway, so, but it's either 7mm or 9/32. More than likely it's supposed to be the 7mm. It's usually metric on these. This is just a flathead screwdriver. This guy needed a little bit of WD-40. Alright, so we have one more fitting that has to come out, but I can't budge that, and I don't want to end up stripping it. So this is going to go in the ultrasonic cleaner anyway. I'm not even going to attempt anything with this float until I get some of that gunk off of it and I can see what I'm working with. And hopefully that'll break this free too. But other than that, that should be pretty much everything that's got to come off of there, you know, until we get this float out afterwards. So I'm basically going to take all this, put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, let it run, probably going to let it run for a couple hours at least and see what that does. And we'll take a look and we'll go from there. Alright, so I'm just going to give you a quick look at the rebuild kit that I ordered. That guy right there. There's not too many sources for a rebuild kit for these. Found this on eBay. It was pretty much this rebuild kit. There might have been another kit that was a little bit cheaper, but it definitely wasn't a complete kit by any means. Again, eBay, but it was through this company, Everett Power Sports. I don't know if that's focusing or not. There we go. Everett Power Sports. And they're not cheap either. 28 bucks, and then you got a little bit of tax, and then the shipping is like 34 bucks time you got done. Like I said, there's not a lot of options out there, and this actually looked like a pretty good kit as far as being complete. Now, let me get this guy opened up. There's that gasket. I'm glad they have it because I ripped the other one taking it out. Just one little corner, but we got a new one. New springs. It's actually a nice kit as far as what's included. New needle, jets, so anyway, it looks pretty complete. Not sure that that's everything. Oh, there it is. I was going to say I didn't see the needle for the float, but it's in there. Definitely going to need that. So yeah, doesn't look like a bad kit. Again, once we get this cleaned up, hopefully it does clean up pretty decent, we'll start the rebuilding process. Alright, back out in the garage tonight. Going to try to reassemble this carburetor. The last you probably saw was when I took this thing apart and how bad it was. So I ran this through the ultrasonic cleaner, used pretty much a whole can of carbon choke cleaner on it, with a little brass brush, and kind of got into all the nooks and crannies. So to my surprise, I was almost getting ready to write this carburetor off. That's what it looks like now. Huge difference. There's the bowl, the float cleaned up all the little parts. A lot of these will be replaced with the new rebuild kit, but I sent them through anyway just in case. So that's what it looks like, getting ready to reassemble. One thing I want to point out, when you look on this part of the carburetor here, see if I can get that to focus better. Alright, you see that guy right there, and trying to do this one-handed, and that guy right there. There's actually holes in those, and this thing was so caked up, it didn't look like there was holes there, but I cleaned them out the best I could with the carbon choke cleaner, plus the ultrasonic cleaner. But what you want to do with those, they actually go from there through the body of the carburetor, through this guy right here, and let's see if I can get it to focus. Right there is a hole. So that hole there channels through and comes out that hole there. So what you want to do to make sure that you got all the stuff out, because it took me several tries, is once you do think you have it cleaned out, fill this bowl up a little bit with some gasoline or WD-40, whatever, And when you cover up that hole up here, just look down here to make sure that it's weeping out. Mine finally is. It took a few tries, but that's important because those holes are so small, it just clogs right up. So anyhow, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start to do the reassemble process. Alright, so I went online and I printed out this exploded view of the carburetor. I don't know if you can see that watermark, but www.cmsnl.com. They sell parts kind of like Babbitt's or any of those kind of type places. In fact, you could probably get this off Babbitt's too. I just happened to go on here. But they had two different exploded views of the carburetor. I always print those out, especially if it's a carburetor that I haven't rebuilt 10 other times before. I work on the Suzuki 230S's, the Quad Sports and the Quad Runners a lot, so I rebuilt them enough where I don't really need the papers anymore. But definitely comes in handy because you can see every little piece that goes in there. You know, like if there's an O-ring, you know, you could have missed it, you could have dropped it and didn't even know it. So it's a good reference. I recommend having it before you start reassembling. Alright, we're going to start with this guy here, and that's going to be the longer spring. Let's place that over the end. There's the old one, and what I do when I take them apart, I try to keep the springs together, so when you go to rebuild it later, you don't get confused on which spring goes where. Taking pictures obviously helps. So we're just going to go ahead. This guy here is going to go right underneath this little, call it a nipple, I don't know what else to call it. We're going to go ahead and tighten that up. Just going to leave that for now, not going to do any kind of adjustments or anything. Next is going to be this guy here. Takes the smaller spring. That's going to go right there. And again, for now, I'm just bottoming these out. I'm going to see if I can find something online. Unfortunately, I don't have a book for this motorcycle. It's not something I normally work on. Probably should have got one. But anyhow, these might be a turn and a half out to start, 2 turns. But I'm going to see if I can get that information. For now, I'm just putting them in and very easily bottoming them out, not going, you know, don't over tighten too much. Alright, next we're going to put this guy in. You don't get a new one of these, so trying to get that to focus. Alright, so you don't get a new one of these, so make sure you get all these little holes nice and clean. I use this pipe cleaner here. And again, just make sure you get them cleaned out good. Make sure you use the right size file on here. You don't want to use anything that's, you know, bigger, and you don't really want to, you know, ream it out too much because you don't want to make those holes any bigger than what they're supposed to be from the factory. So very easily clean them out, blow through it, make sure you're clear going all the way through here. Probably should get that a little bit cleaner. I'm going to do that off camera real quick, and then alright, it did come with a new jet. I cannot see what size that is, but I'm just going to put it in for now. I need a starting point on this anyway, so I'm just going to put that in for now. I can compare it to the old one later if I can end up reading that. Chances are it's going to be fine. so we get a new slow jet with it. That's going to go right there. Alright, we're going to put our drain plug back in. It didn't come with a new one or a new gasket, O-ring, so we don't have much of a choice but to reuse this. It's there. It's not in tough shape considering how old it is, so alright, so we're getting ready to start doing our float assembly, but unfortunately we have some float issues here. You can see right there, and right there. We got holes in it, obviously from sitting all that time. Usually with the brass, you usually don't have those kind of problems, but sitting there that long, it definitely messed that up. This side's pitted, but I don't see any holes on this side. So I either A, have to find a new float. I'd like to stick with a new old stock one or a good used one. They may sell, aftermarket plastic ones. I don't even know. I'm going to look it up tonight. Or I could try to solder this a little bit. It's real thin. I may get lucky with just a little bit of solder. So I'm probably going to try that in a pinch because I want to try to get this thing running. I may clean that up and maybe just fill it with silicone for now. But anyhow, I'm at a standstill at this point. So that's a good point. Always check your floats. Truthfully, what I normally do with my floats is put them in a bowl of water, put some kind of weight on them to hold it underneath the water, and look for bubbles, and pull it out, shake it, and if you got a hole, you'll hear the water in it. I can hear a little something in this one here. But anyway, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with this, and I will be back. Alright, so we're going to continue on with rebuilding this carburetor. I got the new float. I ended up finding this on eBay, new old stock. Unfortunately, it was 40 bucks. A lot of these old Hondas came with the same kind of float, but this particular one for the CL70 is a little bit different in design. The other ones you can get for like 15 bucks. Of course, just my luck, this one's 40. But anyway, had to have it. I tried repairing the other one, it just didn't work out. So we're going to continue on. Alright, we're going to take this guy here, our new one. It's got the O-ring on it already. That's going to go in here. You can see there's a red gasket in there. That's the original gasket. The kit didn't come with a new one. That one looks like it's alright. I'm not going to bother trying to pull it out, so I don't want to do any more damage to it, just in case it's brittle. Alright, get your float set up so this is positioned like this, or that's facing up. Take your needle, slide that in. Careful not to drop that needle, it's going to want to pop out on you. Alright, once you get it in place like that, take your pin, it's a little tedious, obviously, as you can see. Alright, hopefully you're seeing that. Get your pin lined up. Alright, so I just put this in as is. We may need to do some adjustments to this. I don't have the book, so I don't know exactly how to set this float, but right now we're going to kind of leave it as is the way this came. We may have to bend this tab a little bit to get the float just right, but for now I need a starting point, so I'm going to leave that as is. Alright, we're going to go ahead and remove the needle out of here. It's basically compressor spring. Push your needle out. It's going to be a clip in here. There's that clip. Alright, now take your cable. Push it out like that and that'll pop right out. Careful your spring don't go flying. Like that. There's your needle. There's a clip somewhere. Not sure where that went, but I'll find that and I'll show that to you. So you're going to have a spring, your slide, your needle. You're going to have a little clip on there. And I will find that other clip. Alright, this guy right here is just going to pull off. It's kind of like pressed on there. It's just a rubber boot. That's what you're going to be left behind is just your cable. Alright, so there's that clip that I was talking about that went flying on me. That's not the one that went flying. This is the new one that came with it. I didn't find the other one. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it came with a new one. That's your old needle. What you're going to want to do is count your grooves here. I think this one has 4 grooves, and if I'm looking at it right, it looks like it's in the second groove. So basically set your new needle up the same way. That'll get you back to at least where it was originally. Again, we're going to have to do some adjustments on this for sure, but we got to start somewhere. So count down to your second groove, take your little C clip or E clip, snap that guy in there. I'm going to do that off camera so this thing don't go flying on me. Alright, for now, because I'm not putting this carburetor on the bike right away, I'm still doing some cleaning up. I got a bunch of parts taken off of it. So I'm just going to put this back together temporarily so I don't lose any parts. If you look down in there, you can see right there, there's a little pin. Take your slide and the spot with the groove in it here, or the slice in it, line it up with that pin that's sticking out there. That'll slide in there for now. Going to take our new needle, drop that in, put our spring in. That clip's eventually got to go in, but I'm not going to put that in right now because I'm not really ready for it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and screw our top on. Alright, the only thing that's left at this point, put your new O-ring in. That'll squish down once you tighten that up. And that's pretty much it. That's a full rebuild. Again, we still have to install this. We're going to be doing some adjustments on it. But I'm a little bit of ways away from that. I'm still cleaning up the bike. I got the motor out so I can clean that up good. So I probably won't be putting this on for another few days or so. So I'm going to end the video there. If you enjoyed it or useful to you, give me a thumbs up. And if you like this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button. And look out for more videos coming up on the CL-70.